Over half a billion cedis is gone, not because of cedi depreciation or high inflation, but to a criminal payroll scheme allegedly run from inside the National Service Authority. According to the Attorney General, over 548 million cedis was siphoned through ghost names between 2017 and 2024. Now, it easily passes as one of the largest payroll scandals in Ghana's history, implicating top-level officials, service providers, and insiders trusted to manage youth deployment across the country. In this edition of Hot Issues, we digest how a monstrous money-sucking machinery functioned effectively for a whole 7 years. According to AGINA, 12 individuals will face prosecution, but the weight of restoring credibility falls on a new executive director to mend the NSA. In this edition, we ask, how does the NSA rebuild? What safeguards are being put in place? And can the system ever be made immune to manipulation? I am Keminni Amanor, and my next guest is the executive director of the National Service Authority, Felix Gyamfi.
Absolutely emphatic. He has done it.
Get ready for more on Supersport, the only place to watch all the FIFA Club World Cup.
Intense. Fresh. Long-lasting.
It begs the question how that was possible over a whole 7 years. So I know you've been doing some investigations. What have you figured?
Well, I have said several times that it's not just a system, or it has to be leadership. If you have weak leadership around the authority and its operations, then this is possible. So for me, it boils down to leadership. Not only the very top, but also the management, the people who were involved, what they were doing, and then at the regional level, and remain on check. But if you're a leader and you send a second signal to the people you work with, sort of can send them in a different direction. It either enables them to do the right thing and they become very strengthened, or it also could enable them to do the wrong things. And then there are some that you will catch, there are some that you will not catch. So it's possible that there are some that the past Director General knew about, but because he had given a certain wave to certain people, then it enabled other people to do certain things behind his back, as we say here. So it is worrying. For those that have found out that they even did things, and there's no been evidence, right, for the NIB to have called them in, I have taken action and then asked them to move away from the sensitive places that they are. We are still investigating.
How many such cases did you identify?
Oh no, it's going to happen. It's not over yet. But then I have to have conclusive evidence to take an action. All right, and for those, there have been a couple of them. Yes, that in the past they did certain things. The Director General knew about it, but because of probably their backgrounds or where they came from, the Director General's hands were tied not to take it.
But when you went in,
I have. If I would take those decisions and they will go against me in my mind that it's in the interest of the authority, in the interest of saving public purse, I'll take that decision regardless.
what did they do?
Well,
I mean, those you have interdicted.
Yes, of course. No, I haven't interdicted.
But you've moved them
people in
around.
certain way, because they will also have its own administrative challenges. I must have done the investigations and people have sat down to do, but then those were what I've had on personal basis. You know, if in the past you have done something, there was a particular gentleman, and I'll say here for the first time, that's our system administrator. Our consultants say, you know what, even if I will lose my business, I will not allow you access into the system ever again. For such a person, I will, I'll move the person out. My disappointment with that particular case was that, whereas everybody I worked around the authority knew about this incident, they didn't tell me until somebody who has now been interdicted by, been charged by the NIB investigations come forward. Oh, if I'm going, why is this guy still here? And I called him and put the allegations before him, and he had no answer. So I had to move away from where he is. Yeah.
And, you know, from what you have said so far, I glean that outside of the leadership situation that you may have or the NSA may have, there's also the, appears to be stuff leaning towards manipulating the system. Now, you've mentioned before that you conduct a staff audit. What will you be targeting in this audit?
That's what people now know, and it's certain that you don't have. You could be my brother or my anybody. If I find an act of wrongdoing, I'll take action very swiftly, and that people are aware. So it's if it is that impartial, that if you're my friend, if you're my brother, I'll take action that I would have to take. They are aware that they should be mindful about the things that you are doing. A staff audit at this point is really serious, because I'm also mindful of a situation where you could bring the entire authority down, because I've heard people say that, you know what, if I open my mouth or if I say something, the whole authority will come down. I have to balance it with real evidence and then allegations and suspicions. And at any point in time, if I feel that the new regime that we have put in place is threatened by any other person or some people, we'll move them.
If you don't break down the system
Yes.
that has been built before your existence at the NSA, how do you hope then?
No, mind you, I was working at National Service. I was a staff. I've been a staff at National Service for 15 years. I didn't know about it. So certainly not everybody knew about it. The current incident, the issue that we're investigating now, government is certain to prosecute people now, was not as widespread as people think. It was at the top, and it is a bit more discussion on it will reveal that it was perpetuated at the top, at the accountant level, and it wasn't widespread. Not so many people knew about it. They could have been doing other things in their own districts and regions that were also illegal. But in terms of the payroll fraud, not as many people in the districts and regions were know about. Of course, some people at the head office are even surprised that something of this sort was going on. They didn't know about it. So,
I mean, just to clarify the point, I meant before you became, in charge of affairs at the National Service Authority, and if you don't break down the system and rebuild ensure that there is credibility.
Yes.
you still leave room for manipulation or people who want to manipulate, don't you think?
That's what I'm saying, that there wasn't such a system in place for everybody at the National Service doing something wrong. It was at the top. And I've correctly alluded to myself that I was a district manager or municipal manager, and I didn't know about it. People at certain regions didn't know about it. They might have been involved in other things, but not in payroll fraud. So to say that everybody who was working somewhere was involved would be an overhand, and I'm not ready to play that hand. It will be unfair to them as well because they probably didn't know anything about it. Now, I have heard going to public engagements now, the moment you mention National Service, people say, ghost names. I mean, I take it as a joke, but there's also a way that is unfair because so many people did not benefit at all from this operation.
So there will not be a staff audit?
Well, there is a staff audit, but to the extent to find out to the extent of the involvement. And I've been very deliberate about it, so people assume that I have forgotten about it. Every day, I'm asking questions and finding out what is happening, who was involvement of these people. There are people that I've asked that, where you occupy, and then the sort of things that happened there. It's not possible that you didn't know about it. So I'm giving you an option to either move or we transfer you to a place of choice. These are very quiet, humane discussions that I've had to have with them. I'm not in a rush to punish people without proven allegations. Yes.
What then will you say is a signal you are sending? Remember, you alluded in the beginning that it depends on the signal leadership is sending. What is the signal you think you're sending?
Well, the signal I'm sending is one that I'm leading with integrity, and everybody must follow suit. So we have a very transparent system now. Everybody knows where everything is. There is no way you on your own corner would approve something without everybody knowing. One thing I found at the head office, and I found quite shocking, was that the deployment unit didn't know what the PPME was doing. The PPME unit didn't know what the accounts was doing. Now I bring everybody on the table and we make approvals together, and then everybody has to know, because that's how the organization was set up. That's why there's an audit unit, there's an accounts unit, there's a PPME, there's a deployment, there's an MIS. Everybody must know. So there isn't a situation where you're asking for information from the deployment unit, asking how many people are we posting from the University of Ghana, and then he says, wait, and then he keeps saying that for a month. Now, if you bring that to me, within a minute, that action will be taken. So that has sent signals to everybody that now it's time to be serious.
Who are you trusting more, your system or the people who work for the system or work on the system?
No, none can work in isolation.
Right.
You have to lead with integrity, and that is something that we're doing in honor of President Mahama and the entirety of Ghanaians. The system cannot, on its own, work in isolation from the people. So it is something what we are doing together. Yes.
I see. We'll come back to the issue of leadership, because one of the things that caught my attention during the AG's news conference is how many directors there are. At some point, I got confused. I lost count of the number of directors. We'll get there in a tad. But let's look at the system we have mentioned so many times. The system is the crux of everything that we are discussing today. What practical changes have you made to the system since the news of the scandal broke? First,
let's understand what the system is. The system is what runs our posting, our deployment process, and then also the queuing, the registration, the enrollment process, and the entirety of it.
Right.
And then the monthly validation form. It is what you put in the system that the system gives you back. So if you put in a certain amount of information, all right, and then you query it, then the system will give you back. However, as the investigations have found out, the people who came through the private universities, or people who, not private universities, people who have finished university years gone by, if you decide now to do your national service, the schools do not present your details. It's you personally that have to present your details. And that was where the canker happened. So, whereas this year, because of the measures that we've put in place, it has come down to a mere 500 people from the highs in 2023 of 61,000 or 71,000. I mean, that is something that the system could not check because the approvals were done at the head office. And that is the thing that I want the Media Foundation for West Africa, who have been very so helpful in saving Ghana all these amounts of money, should know. That when they mention the system, we've had conversations with them, and then I have sent a consultant to him to explain certain things. We've not stopped there. We've done several things around the system to prove its credibility. But to assume that it's a system that created all this mess or allowed the Director General to supervise such malfeasance is inaccurate. And that is the thing that I want to put out there.
But the Director General sees to the day-to-day affairs.
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
well,
if you have a system that had loopholes that were not checked
It's the people,
and was manipulated by your stuff,
Yeah.
then if the axe is falling, the axe should fall on you as well.
I don't know when people say the system, I don't know what they mean by the system, because I'm saying that it's an electronic system. It is what you put in it that responds. So, for example, in 2022 or 3, the systems administrator wrote to you and asked that, you know what, I found all this number of people who have registered without a Ghana card. The system has detected that. You have to act. If you don't act, do you blame the system? And that is the thing, that it has to be, the conversation has to be more nuanced and broken down so that we all know what we're referring to when we say the system, and so that we can apportion blame or responsibility correctly.
But the system is not only the metric app.
Yes.
The system is the metric app. The other stakeholders within the chain,
Yes.
and then your staff
Yes.
at the NSA.
Yes.
And so when we talk about the system, we are not referring to only the metric app.
Yes.
But based on what you have...
The metric app is an integral part of the system.
I
It's
agree.
The validation process.
I agree.
So what it is that, like we are doing now, we have asked all schools to submit their graduate list. That goes into the system. If as the Director General you make an approval for the list to be brought to you at the head office and you approve it, that is outside of the system, isn't it? And that is what happened.
Hang on.
Yes.
Is that why you continue to use the metric app?
Well, we use the metric app in validation of our day-to-day payroll, putting together the payroll for a national service person. And mind you, that has so far detected over 81,000. In the past, whereas the system was present and everything, the Director General couldn't detect it. I have detected it. So that's why I'm saying that it's not just the system.
And you're saying that you detected it because...
Yeah, the system, yes, the system detected it.
The system detected it.
Yes.
And you decided that, okay, the system
I'll act on
detected
it.
this, and so
Yeah,
I will trash them.
Yes, I'll act on it. So if the system detects something and you don't act on it, and then people with not adequate understanding say the system, that is fault, isn't it? Right. The thing about it is that, and I'm saying it probably, and a lot of people know, without the system, we wouldn't have found out about this malfeasance in the first place, because the system that detects everything. The gentleman the company, or the head of the company that works on the system has had to move houses several times. I have evidence of him being forced to delete all this malfeasance that they had done and everything. So without it, there's nothing that we could have done.
So it means that there are two things that you'd have to talk to us about now. One, the integrity of the people there.
Yes.
How can you assure us, the Ghanaian people, that the people who now manage the system
Yes.
are honest people enough that when the app flags any registration that it cannot validate, they will indeed act upon them?
No, Keminni, I think that we do not have to trust the people alone. Trust is not enough. You have to verify. That's why from now we are going to be also very transparent about it. So whereas in the past they had not involved the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission in approving the list of the schools and then the universities and all that, very transparent. I have sent every list that we have received from the schools and the private people to Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. If the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission says you are not in their list of accredited universities, there's no way that you'll be allowed to do national service, either as a school or as an individual. And then I'll make the list available in the coming days for everybody to see that they already, the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission's approval process has mentioned or has identified about 50 schools that will not be allowed to do national service. You know,
And these schools will not be allowed to do national service because
yes, they are either their accreditation has expired, or for about 30 of them, 18 of them, they've never had accreditation at all. But in the past, they were doing national service, and that is something that the system cannot fix, because it is integrity is character that fix, and that's what Ghanaians should be assured that I will lead to do.
you lead them to do. But you know, the question of whether or not there could be a more superior system in that GTEC can directly communicate with whatever system that the NSA has, so that the manual process or the human process then is minimized.
No, I think that a lot of people are also making assumptions about what the system can or should do, because and then I think transparency probably can work a lot more better than whatever system people are assuming it is, because the universities are going to send a list, the colleges of education, the private and public universities are going to send a list. And we have somebody at GTEC to say that, well, these universities are accredited or not. So we have sent it to them, assuming somebody at GTEC also decides that, you know what, I'm going to be shady and approve universities which otherwise haven't gone through the approval system. So at every point in time, there's a limit to what systems can do. It is also human character and then and integrity. But we're talking about the system. That is the point of deployment. We also have to come and talk about the system in terms of preparing the payroll. And from this year, I have said this several times, that we are going to send our payroll systems to the Controlling Accountant General. Let them run through it with the system and also detect whether we are not paying people who otherwise should not be who are just workers and shouldn't be paid national service allowance, and then and their salary, their monthly salary. So it's just constantly being on the process and making sure that every aspect of it is handled well. I think this year, since I've been in the office, the system has detected and I have deleted about 12,000 people who did not have Ghana card. And none of the people
in
have
the
worked.
payroll.
Yes, none of the people have come to me to say that, you know what, you have deleted my name from the system because I didn't have Ghana card and all that. So we should be clear about what the system is set up to do, and then the assumptions, so that we put them apart. But I do not also want this to be between me and somebody who knows better systems than I do. So we have submitted the system for a thorough check by one of the auditing firms in Ghana. I think that the report will be ready soon. I'll put it before the board, and then we can put it before the entirety of Ghanaians. And by all means, if people feel that they have deliberate or they have researched findings about the weaknesses in the system, they could put it out there and see what we have done about it. So it isn't as if I am digging my heels in spite of the evidence of malfeasance. There's a chance in where I could be charged that I'm working with fraudsters because I have dug my heels in. I'm acting in the best interests of the National Service Authority, the public purse, and then, of course, to honor President Mahama in my term of service.
And indeed, you've gone ahead to assure the Ghanaian people that this will not happen again. But based on all that you have told us already, including your admission that this is not 100% foolproof yet, to what extent would you say you'll be able to deliver on that assurance you have given the Ghanaian people that this will not happen again?
Now, when you say 100 foolproof, I don't know, understand it. The thing is that if University of Ghana sends, 15,000 people to do national service this year, I would hope and be sure that, yes, University of Ghana has a vice-chancellor, the registrar and everything. So the list that they have sent to me, provided everybody in the list have Ghana card and they go through the list and everything, these people will be allowed to do national service. Save maybe workers who are returning to do their national service and will not be allowed on our payroll. Everybody will be allowed. So that aspect, I could say, oh, it's not foolproof. But to assume that somebody at national service or myself would allow people to add names of people who are not legally bound to do national service to be allowed, that won't happen. that I can give you everything, every assurance or guarantee in the world that won't happen.
How so? Especially when it would appear that the internal control or accountability still lies with humans and especially you. So the ones that you don't see.
Keminni, every aspect of the process is transparent. You know what? I mean, if all the universities in Ghana, I have a list that I'll put out and then you would see. So for even the universities that have submitted lists of people and all that, and there are numbers attached to it. We could trace to districts and regions where this occurred and all that. I could say to you today that there's a particular university in Ghana where lots of the malfeasance occurred under their watch more than anywhere else. But because when I mention it, that would have legal implications and it would go against the credibility of the university, and probably tomorrow I'll be asked to appear in court.
I don't understand. How do you mean?
Yes,
that's a public university in this country?
Yes.
Give you non-existent students for national service?
Of course, yes. And then I'm not going to mention the name because of it. So I'm just saying that to prove to you that we could detect if anything untoward is coming from anywhere.
How many students did that university give you?
I'm not going to go into it.
And in which year?
There are issues that we could deal with administratively, all right, also to protect the sanctity of an otherwise very viable public institution. We have taken the action that we have to take. We want to leave it at that. If at any point in time the National Service Board or the Attorney General is interested in the matter, we will give it out there for them to act on that.
I see. So how many non-existent students did that university?
Well, they are probably the list of the list that we have had to delete. You remember the Media Foundation for West Africa, Mr. Sulim Brahima mentioned that there are people from Kenya and then 82 or 3-year-old men were doing national service. That was part of those lists. So we can, actually the system can detect, and then you know what? Of course, Mr. Suleiman Brahima came to the conclusions that he did, and he picked it from the system. He didn't pick it from anywhere. Otherwise, there was no way he would have known that something like this was happening. It is the system that gave him that information. You know, I'm not saying giving my back into the system because of what people perceive to be the gains that is coming to me personally. I'm feeling gently. I have not received or asked anything from the gentleman that is working with the system. I walked into the head office of National Service saying that I was going to put the system down like most people hope to do. But when I sat down, I looked at what the system can do and what we have had before. At that point, it was the best to go forward with. There are more revelations that we can put out to indicate what the system has detected in the past. It could be so damning to individuals and people and everybody. But the Attorney General is working on the case.
You know, one of the things that, again, caught my attention during the news conference is the year 2022-2023 and how some 350 million cedis were siphoned. Based on your audit of the system so far, or, you know, how things occurred, your investigation, internal investigations, what contributed to such high amounts in that particular year alone?
No, one thing, there was a spike in the number of private candidates who were going to do national service, which is, it didn't make sense, you know, because, and these private candidates are what I referred to earlier, that people who finish school this year, in 2025, and say that, oh, I will not do national service this year because of several reasons. So in 2026, they present their documents to do national service. This year, now we have said that if you come in that manner, you'd have to go back to your university to approve to you so that it is sent through their list. Of course, you could walk in to lie to us, but then when you go back to the original university you attended, you can't deceive them.
Right.
If you haven't finished that university. If you came from abroad and you wanted to do national service, and as it happened in 2023, the year you referred to, you'd have to go back to GTech to verify that indeed you have finished that university and these are your certificates or your transcripts before you'll be allowed to. For that year alone, because they didn't do that, they had 71,000 people. This year, because of the measures that we have implemented, we have 500 people.
Felix, on a scale of 1 to 10, how transparent is the new environment that you're building?
Well, I'll leave that for people who are observant to make that judgment, because I'm the one implementing it. So that I will leave to. But then I've spoken about every aspect of it: the introduction of Ghana Card, the involvement of GTech, the payment process as Controlling Accountant General to be involved in that. I would want people who have seen what the past processes are, and the people who are seen now to make judgment whether it is transparent enough or whether there are so many things that we could do. I do not want to give myself this thing. What I can tell you is that there's not going to be people, 180,000 people presenting their names to Controlling Accountant General every month for payment or that sort of thing. That won't happen.
Clarify my confusion for me. The Attorney General indicated that one of the former directors collateralized NSS allowances for a loan from a commercial bank. Based on what you know so far, how could that be possible that an individual could do that with NSS allowances?
It's unimaginable. I mean, I hazard think that it's probably the reason why the allowances were delayed month and after month. That allowances were being delayed for 4 months, sometimes 3 months, and National Service people have not been paid. Now, since January, we've paid people every month. And I'm thinking that as it used to be about 10 years ago, now if you present, National Service persons could be paid at the same time or even before regular workers are paid, because we have reduced the numbers of all the nonsense down to the realistic numbers. So when we present the claims, they are paid quite promptly. In October, the beginning of the registration process, in November and December, the claims that the previous administration presented were for 128 million, 113 million. Since I have come to the office, I have presented 70 million maximum every month. Yeah. So really, back to your question, the thing is that it's unimaginable how something like that happened. I would leave that to auditors to see how it happened, or if it unfolds in court, we'll see where she got the money from, how she moved it, and that sort of thing. You have to carry such a criminal intent to orchestrate such an amorphous operation.
I see. Have the auditors begun their work on the books of the authority?
Well, we initiated a process route to the the Auditor General with the 5 days of my coming to the office. It was an officer intervened and asked that we rather wait and do a more comprehensive. In the last few days, the NIB has written asking for documents outside of what they've just finished the investigations of, asking us to present the documents to them. That preparation of documents is underway, and I'm sure very soon they're going to receive it to begin the process.
I'll come back to the original question I asked about the collateralization of the NSS allowance, because, I'm thinking for such a thing to go on, everybody should have been in on it.
Well, the accountant is in on it. The Director General is in on it, and then they are before, and then some charges have been leveled against, criminal charges. So it's presupposed that they were involved in that, because if I get a claim from all the regions and it comes to the head office, I validate it, I check what has come from the district, what our nominal rule is and everything before I approve them. So if at a certain month the numbers are too many or too less, I would have to find out what happened before I submit it to the, before it comes, it must have come from the auditor, the internal auditor, who also has a much bigger responsibility. In our organogram, he has this on the same status as the Director General. So it has to be such a grand collusion for things like that to happen. And then, mind you, this is not the Director General who collateralized the funds of the authority. It is the Deputy Director General who doesn't sign the checks of the authority. So there's going to have to be a lot more disclosures for us to find out what really happened.
To that. Is the NSA having any liabilities because of that collateralized loan at this time? Are you...
Well,
carrying any liabilities?
no, it hasn't been brought to my attention, none that I know about. I have met the deputy managing directors, the team from Agric Development Bank. They've not mentioned it at all. And then until it was mentioned, I didn't know, because we've not conducted a very thorough audit yet. Of course, the environment I came into also detected that I do want, and I quickly moved the current National Service Authority and its operations very far away from what has happened before.
Right.
Because on a day-to-day basis, we had an authority and an administration to do. So that I have taken it away from what has happened before and then the investigating team. So I've left the investigation and the Attorney General to do its work, and then the Attorney General to do its work, whereas we have focused on the day-to-day administration of the National Service. If the Auditor General were to start work today, we would give them the books and everything that would help them then come to the conclusion that they need
And
to
so,
come to.
I mean, so then essentially we could say that at this time, you do not know whether or not in the past the authority held any liabilities as a result of that collateralized allowances for a loan, or if those liabilities continue to exist.
Well, to the extent that they've not brought it up, and then several companies have brought their liabilities to the authority, and then the ADB has not come up with it. And I think that today also all this was shrouded in the mystery. The NIB has done a far thorough job. Mind you, it has such investigative powers to subpoena people to appear before it, to go to all the banks and ask what has happened. That is a process that if National Service, as a Director General, that I decide to do, will take far more time, and then I would need such investigative powers that I do not comment at the moment.
Indeed. Let's touch on a few things and then we'll look at the redirection of the NSA. The other thing I'd want us to look at has to do with because when you listen to the Attorney General and some of the things that he said, he didn't talk only about payroll, ghost names. He also talked about projects.
Yes.
What kinds of projects are we looking at here that were used to siphon taxpayer money?
In I think there was a famous Obatampa project by the government then and the Minister for Finance. The thing is, the National Service at the time is alleged to have applied and received a certain amount of money. I think 50. At different times they mentioned 100 million, and then to go into agricultural projects. So through that, they acquired some 20,000 hectares of land at Kumewu to embark on agric farming. That results from the money they receive does not correlate with the money they receive. So I'm sure that's what they are speaking about, the Attorney General is talking about. It's quite disappointing. We have bare land, which is barely developed, and then the 100 million is no longer in the accounts. So
when you say barely developed, describe that.
Well, it's 20,000
hectares
of land, and then only 2,000 of it is cleared and ready for cropping, and even that one wasn't done. So there's nothing that.
So there's no farm.
There's no farm. There's nothing that you could say it's return on investment from that expenditure. So I'm sure that is, and it needs to be investigated. Could
it have gone into the buying of the land?
Well, some money went in the buying of land.
Okay.
Some went into the development of it, 2,000 of it. But then, of course, it also, to be fair, they have to investigate that for everybody to find out. I do not want us to dwell on speculations because it will be either injurious to them or it will come back biting me myself. So I want us to have what the evidence will lead us so that we can come to the conclusions that we are alleging.
Right, so it's just this Obatampa project?
Yes. There are other ones, but for reasons. And then the amount is obviously not as high as the other one that we are alleging, with a private NGO that given us some money. Of course, the results were not that very good, and then people are also not forthcoming with what happened. I'm sure that we'll give the evidence to the NIB to investigate, and then we'll all get to know what has happened to that money as well.
Indeed. When we come back from this break, we'll look at the redirection because we know you're doing some things with farms together with MasterCard. We'll look at how this will redirect the focus of the NSA in supporting agripreneurs. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's still Hot Issues here on TV3. Thank you so much for your company. I'm Keminni Amanor, and in this edition, I'm sitting down with the Executive Director of the National Service Authority, Felix Jemfi. Felix, thank you so much for your patience. We also know that the marketplace was shut down, and indeed, it was shut down 2020, 2021. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's probably last year.
Last year?
Yes.
Okay. Because I mean, based on the reports that I have seen, it appeared to indicate that it was shut down in 2020, 2021. But then it also, I mean, you telling me that it was last year also brings clarity to aspects of the reports that I read that indicated that back in 2022, 2023, some events took place on the marketplace. But the reason we are talking about the marketplace is because of the vendors who are now involved in the scandal, as outlined by the Attorney General. Do you have any liabilities now towards these vendors?
When you say liabilities,
I mean, do you have, for instance, are there vendors still to be paid from the NSA based on how things were managed on the marketplace?
No, I mean, for every month, for those who have verified that we need to pay them some money, their money is deducted and assessed and then put aside for them. When we check and then, since I've been here, when we check and then we have to pay them the money, they know how much they are supposed to receive, and that's verifiable. Everybody sees it, and then we give them that money. But like you said, virtually all of them have been out, except for one or two who had existing business with them because of their involvement with the National Service Personnel Association. Beyond that, nobody's in the system doing any sort of business at all.
I see. So this verification is supposed to make sure that what?
Well, it's what the investigation has uncovered is that people who are non-existent, and national service people, were put in the system, and then monies that were supposed to be paid to them were paid to certain people who were allegedly doing business. Now, there are people who, aside those people, there are people who are actually buying certain things, all right? People who are buying televisions and all that. Of course, those people are all out. But now, the National Service Personnel Association has a business with a few insurance companies, you know, that they pay 5 cedis to every month. In the event of death or serious injury, they receive a certain amount of money. That has continued to exist. And then we also, for years, decades, National Service has had cloth. All right, that has continued to exist. But apart from that, all the others have been shut down. But of course, it's not, it's also what we spoke about earlier, that the manual path, you know, that the insertion of these names and then the businesses that were done in the dark, that is what has allowed that to happen.
Indeed. So, but you know what I'm actually driving at or wanting to know? Because the system was shut down only last year.
Yes. No, but of course we do not have any liabilities at all. Nobody.
So there are no instances where deductions are still being made from supposed service personnel to offset the loans they have taken from these
every
vendors.
service person is receiving their allowances fully at the end of every month, and that's what's happening, yes.
I see. Do you plan to bring the marketplace back?
Well, it would take more than me. So we'll go back to the board and then decide these things. But of course, there has to be a good balance because people see that place as a viable place to do business. So we have to strike that balance quite well. Yes.
Let's look at the redirection map, so to speak, right? Your focus now will be a lot on private sector.
Of course.
Why is that important?
Well, that's more beneficial to talk about at the authority now, and I'm happy to talk about it. We have to have a deployment strategy that is in conformity with the vision of President Mahama, with the economy, that is in tandem with the economy, with the training and employability aspirations of all service persons. So over the years, what we found out that we have sent majority of our persons, national service persons, to the public sector, but then it doesn't take much to find out that it's not commensurate. You know, the money spent by governments of Ghana on these service persons is not commensurate with the return of such an investment. Right? So you are sending national service persons, about 80,000, 100,000 of them, to the public sector, but you do not see the training they gain in their chances of finding employment or benefits to the National Service Authority. So I'm saying, look, we should go back and then now sit down and say that, you know what, if we are looking about employability for national service persons after they have finished university, they have more chances of getting employed if they are sent to the private sector. So the evidence we have will show that persons who are sent to the private sector get employed within 3 years after doing national service. For those who are 7 in the public sector, it takes them 10 years. So the choice is very clear. 2, the National Service Authority as an institution gains 20% on each allowance paid to a service person in the private sector. So for our own sustainability in helping manage national service and getting money that will be used to for infrastructural development, for our farms, for our projects, for managing the authority. It helps us if we send national service persons into the private sector. And also, it's also where people gain real practical experiences. So
instead of the government spending more on service personnel, you're hoping to redirect them to the private sector.
And it reduces government's commitment to national service in terms of payment of.
But how many personnel can the private sector absorb?
Of course, what I found out is that we haven't been out there as possible. Of course, mind you, the private sector is where the economy also grows. The private sector is where majority of employment is. I'm sure the government of Ghana's total workforce is probably 1 million or a little, but the private sector employs everybody else, So that's where we can send people. So I'm for national service persons exploring all other opportunities, even outside the traditional private sector institutions. So apart from working in the banks and all that, why can't we have national service persons getting into companies that prepare shutdown palm wine and other things for export, both consumptions and all that, and expand the market base of our economy quite widely. There are so many areas that we seem to forget that it's part of the economy. Not too long ago, mushroom was such a viable thing that everybody is doing. Mushroom remains one of the very expensive, food items that we buy. We're importing palm oil for those who are refining vegetables oil. We have vast lands that need to be planted with palm fruits. If national service could get involved with private sector companies and get into it, so my focus really is to move majority of our service persons away from the private sector, where they sit under trees and do nothing, to where they learn real practical experiences, so that they could improve their employability and give them sustainable path in their own livelihoods as well.
I see. And what are you doing with the farms now? You have the land? What do you plan to do with that?
We have revived our lands that had not been used in the last so many years. So for all those farmlands, they are back into use, where we are planting maize now and then rice, tomatoes, and all the other things with the help of the Agri-Impact organization. But beyond that, we've also gone to all other people who have lands that are not being cultivated, people who have tractors and they are looking for lands, partner with them. And as I speak to you now, at least this year, we'll put into cultivation about 10,000 acres of maize, and then maybe 5,000 acres of rice, and soya bean, tomato, and then already, as you have seen from our Papa adventure into poultry, every week, if all plans go well, every 6 weeks, we'll be putting out about 100,000 birds in the market of Accra alone, and then more thousands of crates of eggs. There's a deliberate effort to enhance, the livelihoods of our service persons. We're saying to them that they do not have to seek employment only in the cozy offices and earn fixed incomes, right? They could boost their own incomes by having businesses that they have neglected in the past.
And we've also heard that the military deployment will begin this year. Explain to us how you are incorporating that in the deployment process for the authority.
Well, it's President Mohammed's vision that, aside the other fights that the nation fight, we also have to fight in discipline. We have to have, prepare people for life. And then what a better place to start than with young people. So I think we had our 4th meeting on Friday with the military. We're hoping that in August, about 5,000, first 5,000 batch will start. When the first 5,000 finish, another 5,000 will go. This is a trial year to find out what we can do better, and if there are gaps, we fix them. So that next year, we can bring in either the entire 100,000, 120,000 people. So this year...
So how are you going to identify the personnel?
Oh, no, this year we are going to give priority for those who will be lucky to work in our farms in certain areas of engagements in national service. They will be given priority to do the military training. And I'm sure there's going to be a rush for it because the military has prepared a very robust and very detailed curriculum for the engagement for 6 weeks in all their barracks around the country.
And you're saying 5,000 of them?
Yes.
Will be piloted this year, from August?
No, 10,000 will be, but we'll have a 5,000 and then later another 5,000.
Another 5,000. I see. And so, it's clear from what you have said that you are working on redirecting.
Of course, yes, and that is where we are service. Naturally, because to have a situation where national service persons go and sit and they are sent to do that thing, that is not a good use of somebody who has spent 4 years in the university. Now it's time to train, to build capacity, to be exposed to the environment of work, and it's better they are exposed right. The private sector is where, of course, there are some public sector organizations where they work really well and they get trained well. We had a meeting with Cocoa Board the last time, and Cocoa Board is such a conglomerate, and with all their different departments and their divisions and all that, they are quite such specialized skills and all that. But then the thing this year is that if Cocoa Board asks for 500 people, we hope that people do not come and force our hands to send 500 more so that there are 1,000 people. That distorts considerably that's
where I want us to go to, how you plan to insulate yourself from external pressure, external manipulation, like what you have just espoused.
I've communicated quite transparently with everybody. I've told them what the aspirations are. If we are all in favor of moving the agenda of the youth, all right, like President Mohammed has rightly pointed out to all of us to do, then the choice is one. I have shown you evidence that, if we send people into the right places, they gain experience, the economy, benefits from it, and then National Service Authority as an institution benefits from it. That's where to go. So if Cadbury asks for 20 people, I'm hoping that, this year we'll send them only 20 people. Of course, if people come and they push you to send 20 people more, we'll tell you that, we have done a lot more thorough work this year, and then we have found even hundreds more companies that we can send people to. So the fact that you don't get to Cadbury, you get to other places. What the problem is that in the past years, lots of people want to get into particular companies, because they assume you get more money there, you get better service there. And in the process, 500 stay at home for 1 week and the 500 come to work. So that's really no national service. So we've looked for, this year, all our district officers, unlike in the previous year, I have given them quotas. So for those who were in Collateralization in the previous year, you were just bringing 300 private sector organizations to send our service person. This year you have 20% or 50% more, depending on the size of the capacity that you can fill. And then we are going to go into the private sector quite seriously.
I see. Outside of general deployment,
yes,
for the other streams of deployment,
the nurses and
the nurses and teachers, yes. Do you have any areas to pay them in terms of allowances?
No, zero.
Zero.
As we speak, sit here, I have paid everybody.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Over what period were you able to do that? Well,
the thing is that in the first month, we had presentations to the Controller and Accountant General of 428 million. We did the checks we did, and we validated about 95,000 people. And then because the numbers had come down, it was easy for Controller to pay. So we paid them. So now on a month-by-month basis, we pay everybody. Now there's their money, so they will not submit their claims for month 1, month 2, month 3. So by a certain month, you are hit with claims for
Very large sums.
very large sums. I have told people that, you know what, if you do not submit your claims for the particular month that you work, you risk forfeiting it.
Very well.
I'm sure very soon people will run to social media to complain about that, but now I've given my word on that.
Thank you very much for talking to us. Felix Jemfi is Executive Director of the National Service Authority. We hope that you enjoyed this edition of Hot Issues. If you missed it, you'll find it on all our socials, including YouTube. I'm Keminni Amanor, and this is Hot Issues. Bye-bye.